Hi. It's fantastic to be in this room with so many like-minded people. The energy in this room is powerful. It's fabulous. So thank you all for coming. There's a saying here in Ireland, who's your one? And it means, who do you think you are to tell me what to do? Well, my name is Niki Williams. I'm a psychiatric nurse, a counsellor, a parent mentor, and a trauma therapist by training. However, my main qualification is what I've learned through personal experience as a survivor and a divorced mother of 3. My parents separated, my father moved abroad, and I was raised from the age of 3 by a single mum for 9 years. We lived in a council house on welfare benefits, and I remember life as simple and carefree. Then my mum got married to a man whom she really didn't know. I believe she was in love with the idea of being a proper family, and she fell for his potential rather than his reality. He was a very sick man. He was a whiskey-drinking alcoholic who made irresponsible financial decisions. My mother went to work to feed us. He systematically sexually abused and raped me, and my mother was too terrified and ashamed to leave him. And all this had a hugely damaging effect on our family relationships. Consequently, I was left with a legacy of shame. I felt like it was my fault, that there was something bad in me, and if people actually knew me, they wouldn't like me. More positively, it gave me a thirst for learning. I had a God-given, unshakable belief that there were better things out there for me. I wanted to learn how to do things differently, something we've heard a lot about today, and I'm sure we'll hear more. I needed practical, workable alternatives, so I became a self-help book junkie. After some chaotic years of living independently, learning the hard way that hurt people, I found a man who was willing to marry me. Having read an abundance of literature about relationships, healing, and creating a better life, I'd engaged in therapy, and I felt ready to have a family of my own. I was clear with him that divorce was not an option for me. In fact, what I told him was, I'll kill you before I divorce you, so you better be sure that this is really what you want to do. So you can imagine my devastation when 5 years into forever, I discovered my husband's affair with a married friend. All the things that I believed would protect me from this had failed, and the bottom fell out of my world. We had 2 children at this stage. My daughter was 3. When I looked into her eyes, I was unable to separate her pain from my own at losing a father. I had long ago vowed that my children would grow up with a mum and dad who loved each other and stayed together. So we reconciled. We honestly tried. We even had another child, but the trust was gone. By the time we agreed to go our separate ways, and I relocated from England to here in Ireland, 2 out of 3 of our children were acting out with daily antisocial behaviours. Because I had worked so much on myself, I understood the process. They were drawing attention to what needed to be resolved. I sought out help for them. I researched and tried every solution I could come up with, and yet the behaviours continued. Only now I faced it as a single parent, where I knew no one and I had no support network. On the outside, I appeared bravely confident, relying on my old survival skills. On the inside, I felt isolated, ashamed, angry, and guilty. There were days when I lost sight of anything positive. I woke in the morning thinking, this is not my life, and feeling, I just can't do this anymore. Before dragging myself out of bed to do what had to be done. I was living a life of quiet desperation. However, just as in my childhood, my spirit kept telling me there were better things ahead, and I could not give up hope. I read about Dr. Tony Humphreys, an Irish psychologist and author, who seemed to speak my language about raising children with healthy self-esteem. I thought to myself, this is it. If he can't help me, no one can. And whilst at UCC for a year, I grew and matured as a person and as a parent. I learnt, among many, many other things, the simple yet profound truth that I want to share with you today. I call it the 100% rule, and it goes like this. Everything that someone else says and does is 100% about them. Everything I say and do is 100% about me. Think about that for a moment. Everything that someone else says and does is 100% about them. And everything that I say and do is 100% about me. It's about personal accountability. It was a revelation to me, taking complete responsibility for one's own actions. Something my parents had not learned, and so were unable to teach me. By applying this rule, I was able to stop personalizing other people's behavior. It's what finally moved me out of a victim mentality where I felt powerless over my life. For example, my children were not punishing me for being a bad mother. They were telling me the only way that they knew how, that life was difficult and painful for them too. My husband didn't leave me because I failed as a wife. He left because he chose to solve his problems that way. He could have chosen differently. I couldn't have forced him to leave any more than I could make him stay. The only person that I can control is myself. How other people act usually has very little to do with me and much more to do with what's going on inside of them. Fear, anger, hurt, frustration, disappointment, illness. You just don't know what battles someone else may be fighting in their lives and projecting onto you. With the compassionate and non-judging mentorship that I received, I learnt how to hold, not control, my children's pain over the loss of their dad, or their upset at witnessing my grief. I chose to forgive myself rather than beat myself up. Acknowledging my pain, I began to take better care of my own needs, and I reached out for support to people who were actually able to offer it. I learned how to parent myself with the same loving compassion that I was endeavouring to parent my children. Having read so often about loving myself, remember I was a self-help book junkie, now I was actually doing it. By recognising and honouring my needs, valuing my thoughts, and expressing my feelings as being equally as valid as everyone else's, I moved from a head knowledge to a heartfelt understanding. It's not what you have that makes you a good parent. It's who you are. And love is what I believe my children will remember most, because a lack of love is what I remember most. And after this shift from within, I moved on with renewed hope. I felt empowered to act for myself rather than against another. It's called setting healthy boundaries, something else we'll probably hear a lot more about today. And I had struggled with this for such a long time. I found my voice, and I used it to communicate honestly and assertively, especially with my children. No means no, because my rules are fair and are there to keep you safe. It's become okay to be vulnerable with them, to respond to their anger and tears with, I understand you're feeling angry, and it's okay to be sad. And also, I know, I miss Daddy too. I could admit to them, I'm really sorry I shouted today. I am having a tough day, and that's not your fault. And children actually are naturally forgiving. Seeing my ex-husband through my children's eyes was a huge step of emotional separation. It was more important for me, or to me, for him to be their dad than to punish him for hurting me. I was willing to forgive him, and healing followed. I discovered that I was actually able to unconditionally love my children, cultivating a close, affectionate relationship with each of them, despite the difficult behaviours. I feel so passionately about sharing this learning with other parents that I founded my company, United Parenting, putting children first. Because sometimes getting help doesn't mean solving the problems. It can mean maintaining a loving relationship and that connection that so many people here will be talking about, even in the face of those problems. With a house full of teenagers now, it's a bumpy road that we're travelling together. As we know better, we do better. And so can you. So I trust that sharing my story with you will inspire you to share your story with me. And I thank you for listening, and have a great day.